Hey guys, welcome back to Franchise Tagged. My name is Elijah. I'm one of the two hosts of the channel, and today I'm going to be going over my scouting report at wide receiver out of Texas, Adonai Mitchell. As a disclaimer, this is my first year evaluating prospects in the draft, so don't take anything I say as law. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Adonai Mitchell is 21 years old entering the NFL draft. He's 6'1" and weighs in around 200 pounds. He has 3 years of college experience, 2 with Georgia and 1 with Texas. In 2022, with his sophomore year with Georgia, he suffered an ankle injury, which sidelined him for all but 6 games. And then he transferred to the University of Texas, where he had career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. 55 receptions, 845 yards, and 11 touchdowns. I, like always, will evaluate the whole of a player's tape. So with that said, let's get into his run game usage. Adonai Mitchell saw the chance to tote the rock in the backfield just twice this year, and it didn't look great. On one carry, he had a loss of 4 yards, and on another carry, he had a gain of 5 and then fumbled it out of bounds. Needless to say, it's not the greatest tape out in that aspect, but that's not really what I meant when I referenced his run game usage. I more so meant his run blocking. While he did not start the season off too hot in this regard, he developed as the year went on, and he was able to get his hands on the inside of players more often and overpower DBs. Since screens are sometimes considered an extension of the run game in the NFL, I kind of want to evaluate that in this same regard. While he never got good at throwing those blocks out, he got slightly better but still missed on a good portion of screen blocks towards the end of the year. His main issue to start the season off was hand placement, often grabbing the outside of the shoulder pads and not having much leverage there. I will say he did get more trust from his coaches in run blocking. Towards the end of the year, I noticed a lot more of his usage as a more crucial block on the run play, and in close sets, he would be throwing blocks out on linebackers or safeties and being the one to kind of make a gap for the running back. With his run blocking out of the way, I want to get into his pass catching, obviously the most important part for a wide receiver. The run blocking is, as I said, I want to grade the whole of his tape, and I'm not going to completely ignore it, but it's not weighed too heavily in my final perception of him. Adonai Mitchell is a very good wide receiver prospect. His ability to stem routes and set DBs up to failure, plus his footwork and his quickness on release, he gets open in so many different ways. Specifically against man-to-man coverage, I think that those traits are all top end. And then whenever it gets to the aspect of his play against zone coverage, he's very good at throttling down and understanding that he's in the open space of the field and that he's not being covered, so he should slow down and make himself a more easy target for the quarterback to hit. He did this several times facing quarters coverage or on any real crossing route across the field. He was showing some slowing pace once he's behind those linebackers, making himself an open target, catching it, and taking off with the ball. He has great body control and countless reps that display his wide catch radius, most often on leaping catches, as I think Quinn Ewers kind of knew he's a taller guy. He could put it over his head and he will reach out and grab it. Adonai is a great hands catcher, meaning that he prioritizes catching with his hands, but not to a fault. He knows when to be able to catch it with his forearms as he's going towards the ground. He knows when to change it up and catch with the diamond or with the pinkies together. And he doesn't force himself into awkward situations when trying to catch the ball. Outside of his catching ability and his kind of general way of getting open, his route tree is diverse, and he does a great job of generating separation, whether it's through the footwork I mentioned or through using his head to fake out defenders. He has almost a full NFL route tree. I think that his weakest one is probably the curl and comeback route, but I'll get to that in a later section. Right now I want to kind of progress on the good routes that he has, the fantastic ones, and he is a fantastic player deep. He has a fantastic deep route tree, and he manipulates the last resort defender to ensure a good break on the route. He stems to their outside shoulder if he needs to cut and make it a break on the inside. If they're outside leverage, then he will stem to the inside and have them follow him that way, and if he needs to break an outbreaking route against their outside leverage, he now is able to cross in front of their face as their momentum follows him inside. So I think that all of the traits he has allows him to have that ability to play the deep ball great. And he has great speed and quickness. Once he gets those DBs to turn his hips, he can just go and run right past them. With that out of the way, I will circle back to those cons of his game right now, and I'm going to start off with the curl and comeback route I mentioned. That throttling down of the curls at the top of the route, I think, is a little weak. He often is covered on those kind of routes, and he doesn't do a great job of utilizing his 6'4" frame to kind of box out defenders. And I think that he could get a little bit better in that in regards to throttling down, taking less steps, and turning sharper, because then the DBs wouldn't have the time to recognize he's slowing down and making his stop and wouldn't have the time to break on the route. Another area of his game that's lacking is his yards after catch. He doesn't display elite agility with the ball in his hand, and he does make some players miss sometimes, but as I said, it's not a frequent thing to see. And he does big body some DBs. He fights through contact well, but that's not exactly like a move, in my opinion. That's more just he's going to power through. He's going to pick up those extra yards for you. He doesn't face much press. It's not really his fault. I'm not going to fault him for that, but he doesn't face any press, so I'm wondering how he might respond to that in the league, since there's no tape of him having like a win against press. Another concern that stems from that is he seems to slow on his routes where there is contact. I don't expect him to completely power through, but it feels like some reps, if he's getting pushed or their hands fighting down the field, he just gives up on the route. And I'm not so sure if this is due to his tiredness already, if it's just an effort issue because he knows he's not an actual read on the route. It could be any combination of these things, because there's a handful of times when I feel like a DB would get hands on him and he would power through it. I just feel like it's infrequent enough where that would be a concern teams would have with a 6'4" wide receiver not using his physicality well enough to fight through hands contact down the field. All in all, I very much like Adonai Mitchell's tape. He's an easy target for quarterbacks to hit thanks to his large catch radius, the throttling down against zones, and he's a safe option if you can get the ball to him accurately. He only had one drop all of last season. He wins deep, and while he can't perform those curl routes at an elite level, the rest of his route tree and his skills make up for it. My favorite thing to watch from his tape was his ability to fully manipulate DBs using the stemming of his routes. He can hit their outside shoulder or their inside shoulder, and no matter what leverage they have on him, they're going to be scared and they're going to open their hips one way or the other, and he's going to be able to make a cut that leaves him wide open. However, it's not all great things. He can be inconsistent in run blocking. The reps I saw with the hands fighting down the field, where it kind of felt like he was giving less effort as that play went on, and he wasn't getting open and he wasn't winning, and he just kind of waned on the effort and gave up on that rep. That could be exacerbated when he faces press corners and that contact is at the line of scrimmage off the rip of the play. And it's more often in the NFL that he'll be playing against those press corners if he's ISO on the side of field. All of that said, I still really do like Adonai Mitchell. I think that he's probably a top 4 wide receiver, and I don't think that there's much argument against that. There's some handful of players that you might put over him, but I need to kind of get to those wide receivers to have a full consensus grade on them, but I don't see him dropping out of the first round. And if he does, I see it more so as the fact that teams are betting on the fact that, oh, this is a deeper wide receiver class and we're going to let them fall and get them in the second, less so like he's going to not have a first round grade on teams' boards. That just about wraps up my opinions on Adonai Mitchell. Leave any comments down below about where you would like him to go, if you want your team to draft him, and if you think that he is that first rounder that I mentioned, or if you think he is a second rounder, and kind of give me an explanation as to why. But I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Twitters are in the description. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you want to see some more scouting reports coming out. And we got mock drafts coming out every 2 weeks, so check those out, and deuces.